All right. Well, welcome to the first specimen spotlight. We'll start things right off, and I'll introduce myself. My name is Paul Mayer. I'm at the Field Museum, and the title of my talk is The Tully Monster: What Can We Learn from a Strange 300 Million Year Old Fossil? And there you can see a very odd-looking fossil. This is a soft-bodied animal from the Mazon Creek region. Some of you may have been on a field trip. It is, they're about 307 million years old from the Pennsylvanian period. And you can see the one, this is a large specimen, and the person is holding the same specimen. His name is Francis Tully, and he was an amateur fossil collector and a pipe fitter from Coal City, Illinois. The Mazon Creek was a strip mine, and so people would, the mining companies would take 20, 30, 40 feet of shale and strip it off the coal layer in order to get 3 or 4 feet of coal. And they would have these huge spoil heaps of soft gray shale. And within those shales were hard siderite, ironstone nodules. And when it rained and when the winter the snow wash came, the shale would be washed away, leaving behind all these round, hard nodules. And if you split them open, many of them, about half of them, have fossils inside. And there's a huge army of amateur collectors who would go out there and collect stuff. They worked with folks at the Field Museum, so they'd want to bring in stuff and identify it and learn if they found something new. Everyone really liked getting insect fossils, and that's typically what you found were plant and insect fossils when they first started strip mining, because they were way to the north. But as the coal mines, the strip mines worked their way south, going ever deeper to get that coal, they crossed an ancient shoreline, and they went into a shallow estuary bay environment that was here about 307 million years ago. Illinois would have been on the equator, would have been warm and tropical, somewhat like Louisiana or the Amazon. And when the coal strip mines finally went down there, people all of a sudden started finding all these new types of fossils: shrimp, marine worms, jellyfish, which were called blobs. No one actually knew what they were for a while. And they may not actually be jellyfish. They may actually be burrowing sea anemones. And so there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of soft-bodied animals. Unusual, it's called in geology a Lagerstätten, where you get these soft-bodied animals and really well preservation. So this is one of like 24 Lagerstätten with soft-bodied preservation in the world. So a lot of people come here. And then in 1955, Francis Tully came across this weird little fossil that he's holding there and didn't know what it was, brought it into the Field Museum for Eugene Richardson, our curator at the time, to look at. And Richardson didn't know what it was. He thought maybe it was a worm, maybe something else. He took it to other paleontologists, other zoologists. They couldn't identify it. And so then finally in 1966, Richardson published on it and put it in a group called Problematica, meaning it was an animal, but we didn't know exactly where in a tree of life it fit, which is fair enough. It's got this long proboscis. This is the mouth over here, although at the time they thought it was a claw. The tail is kind of missing on this one, but the tail often looks like a sort of a diamond shape, like a squid's tail. And then right here, we can't actually see that on that, can we?
You want me to go a point?
No, that's all right. Well, you can see the eye bar going straight across, and so the eye bar is on a rigid stalk that goes straight across. Thank you, Jessica. Maybe next time we'll get a laser pointer. We'll save up. And so a weird-looking critter. No one knew what it was. Later on, Merrill Foster in the 70s published a report that he thought it might be a shellless, free-swimming gastropod, a sea slug, something like what's called a sea elephant. Afterwards, some people thought maybe it's a cephalopod with just one arm, a very strange animal. Brett Bell published that thought it might compared it to a conodont. And so there's a lot of ideas what it might be, but even different phylums. So no one knew what it was. Eventually, we worked with folks from Yale University on a big research project. We photographed 1,200 of these fossils using specialized lighting to bring out some of the details. And we discovered some key characteristics and about a dozen or two of those 1,200 that we photographed that showed it was a vertebrate. We found a notochord, arcualia, little cartilaginous nodules along the notochord, and gill pouches and notochords. So we found these key characters allowed us to identify it as an agnathan. It's actually, closest living relatives would be a lampreys and a hagfish. And it looks like a very specialized creature. We don't know what it ate or what it lived. So it tells us that there's probably a lot going on in the early evolution of fish that we don't understand and maybe need to investigate a little bit more. So I think I'm probably just about out of time, and I will introduce our next speaker. Thanks.